All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Kathleen Warshawsky, and you are at SBB University. This is part of our mental health series. Today, we're going to talk about depression, suicide, and the holidays. Our speaker today is going to be Cassandra Cote, and she is the Director of Nursing at WellBridge Hospital of Greater Dallas and Kindred Behavioral Healthcare. Today's program is brought to you courtesy of the Oxford Grand, WellBridge Healthcare, Kindred Behavioral Health, and Seniors Blue Book. And I don't know why, but I don't know that I can. There we go. So I want to give a shout out to the Oxford Grand Assisted Living and Memory Care community for helping to put together today's program and helping to coordinate today's speaker. I'd like to thank Kindred Behavioral Health and WellBridge Healthcare, and Salima is on the call from WellBridge Healthcare. She's going to tell us a little bit about WellBridge.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Salima. I am the liaison for Collin County representing WellBridge Hospital in Plano. We specialize in treating mental, behavioral, and substance use issues for 30 and up. We have recently increased that age limit. So I know we're known for 50 and plus, but we will now be catering to your active adult 30 and plus. And also we now have a COVID positive side. So we accept patients that are COVID positive and have all the specialized tools needed in order to treat those patients. I will leave my contact information in the chat box, and I look forward to working with all of you guys. And please do reach out if you guys have any questions, and I will hand it right back to Kathleen. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm Kathleen, and I am with Seniors Blue Book. Seniors Blue Book is the only comprehensive resource guide in the Dallas area. We have our print edition and our Discharge Planners Resource Notebook. They're both available via the internet or via print. We have our activity calendars. We have fun networking events, our continuing education programs done through SBB University. And then, of course, you can search for all of these resources online as well. The Dallas website for that is sbbdallas.com. Today's program, we're going to talk about isolation with depression and the holidays and suicide. The purpose of today's educational activity is to increase the knowledge of the registered nurse and other healthcare professionals in the area of depression and suicide and its impact on mental health. To receive your educational contact hours for today's program, you must have registered via Zoom. You must attend the entire webinar presentation. You must complete the evaluation tool within 24 hours of today's program ending, and you will be sent a certificate of successful completion for 1 contact hour, and that will be sent by the end of the month. Conflicts of interest and disclosures, we have none to report. There is no commercial support for today's activity, and the event hosts did not influence any content for our speaker today and today's program. And now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our speaker. So Cassandra has been a nurse for 16 years, working in psychiatry for 12 of those. She's a certified applied suicidal intervention skills trainer. Her experience includes people of all ages, including pediatric, adolescent, and adults in geriatric, in acute inpatient psychiatric, acute detox substance abuse disorders, as well as outpatient programs. She is currently the Director of Nursing at WellBridge Hospital, Greater Dallas, and Kindred Behavioral Health. She is a mother of 3 children, and she loves to line dance, swim, read, and work on projects around the house. She also let me know that one of her children is actually pursuing a career in the mental health services as well. So welcome, Cassandra. We really appreciate you coming and talking to us today.
Thanks. I appreciate the invitation. This was a good step away from my regular day-to-day to take a few minutes to put together my thoughts and my knowledge on depression and suicide and the holidays. So I hope that you can all benefit from this and perhaps influence the holidays for your loved ones and yourselves in a positive way. So I'll go ahead and get started. Today, I want to talk with you about depression and suicidality during the holiday season. I do want to place some emphasis on our elderly population, but I also ask you to open your heart and your mind to society as a whole. I want you to consider your own family, your friends, and even your own mindsets. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Or is it? Society and media have turned the holidays, especially Christmas, into a time of obligatory traditions and responsibilities more than it ever was before. The pressures can be relentless this time of year to make the season merry and bright for all of those around you, oftentimes at the cost of your own sanity and happiness. Think about this for a moment. Do you feel like you have to do some particular tradition, event, party, or dinner? Do you have to put up Christmas lights, even if they really aren't in the budget this year? Do you have to make cookies for the office, even though you are exhausted and have other things you'd rather do? Do you have to go to church with the family on Christmas Eve just because that's what we are expected to do? What about hosting family for dinners or buying gifts for every boss, uncle, or cousin's girlfriend on the list? Do you feel anxiety just hearing this list of obligations that many of you can completely relate to? I know I do. For several years now, starting sometime in September or October, I will occasionally have nightmares that it is Christmas Eve already. I'm at the store trying to buy gifts for my whole list because I put it off out of dread, and now there's nothing good left. The lines are around the buildings, it's 8 o'clock, and the pressure is on. I'm thinking about how I'm missing out on cocoa and Christmas stories, and I'll be up till 6 in the morning on Christmas morning just trying to get it all wrapped. It's enough to give anyone ulcers. So let me ask you, do we have to do all these things? Do we want to do all of these things? What happens when we feel like we have failed our own expectations? We missed the candy canes for the Christmas morning hot cocoa, and now it's no longer perfect. Is it possible there's another way? I've listed 5 of the most typical reasons for holiday depression, and I wanted to talk about those in depth with you guys. The first reason that we typically begin to feel depressed at the holiday season is because we feel overwhelmed by all of the things that we're expected or we expect from ourselves to accomplish or to participate in. It's too much, and the pressure becomes defeat, despair, and eventually depression. Another reason we can feel depressed over the holidays is that we long for what was before. Maybe there was a time in our lives when the holidays were everything you could have dreamt of. The right people, the right stage of life, you had the right motivation, the finances, and the support to put together a season that was incredibly fulfilling for you. Maybe certain people were in your life at that time and they're not in your life anymore. Another reason we tend to find stress and depression at the holiday season is because we feel obligated. We know we cannot oblige everything, either because we do not have the capacity to put in the time or the effort, or perhaps we don't have the finances to do what we think is required or expected of us. And a lot of times those expectations are actually self-imposed. But that feeling of obligation leaves us feeling less than and can lead to holiday depression. Our finances, those stress us out on the best of days, but you add the holidays and it feels worse. Especially this year, 2020 has been rough for a lot of people. A lot of people have not had jobs. A lot of people have had to make adjustments to have children at home, and finances are not what they were in 2019. So finances may have us in a spot where we cannot, or maybe we should not, do all of the things that we wish we could do, especially this year with all the layoffs and the cutbacks. Or a lot of folks that I work with have actually been out for a long stint of illness because of the pandemic. Another thing that typically stresses folks out is our family and our friends. Sometimes we're not able to be with the ones that we want to celebrate. This could be for so many different reasons. For instance, the death of a loved one, distance, isolation. COVID this year is a glaring reason. This season, isolation and the pandemic especially affect our elderly patients that are in facilities and have not possibly seen their families face to face and been able to hold their hand since March. That's going to be tough for some people. And the last thing that typically contributes to holiday stress and depression is memories of the holidays past. This is a big deal for our elderly population, especially when you start to get into your folks that have dementia, early onset Alzheimer's. Those memories from holidays past are what they're ruminating on. They're the things that matter to them, and they're giving them a lot of thought right now. And as those memories come out, they can create a longing for that same kind of connection and a frustration knowing that that connection is lost, especially if they're unable to connect with their families. Sometimes as we age, the holidays no longer seem very jolly, and we don't feel like celebrating much anymore. What used to be a joyous occasion can change and take on new meanings as life throws us curveballs. We think we're supposed to be exceptionally happy at this time of year, but that expectation alone can cause people of all ages to become sad or depressed. Caregivers and older adults are especially susceptible to the holiday blues. As a caregiver, you can be prone to adopting your loved one's melancholy feelings or anxiety, and vice versa. They can adopt yours. While the holidays may not be the same as they were in the past, there can still be plenty of reasons to celebrate. One of the most important things to remember is that it's okay to enjoy the holidays as they are now. Old memories hold a very special place in your heart, but there's always enough room to add new ones. And sometimes the quirkier they are, the more fun and the more memorable. So think outside the box when you're thinking of these new memories that you would like to make this year. So let's start talking about some practical advice to deal with these holiday blues and stressors that we've talked about. First off, there is just too much to do. It's important that you're realistic. Perhaps this year, a 5-course dinner is just not practical. Maybe this year, it's time to think about the few things that your family treasures the most. And instead of, like my mom, she typically bakes about 40 varieties of cookies every year. And I think with all the extra stress of this year, I'm going to suggest we stick to maybe 5 to 10. I know that's about all I can handle. You need to focus on you and what those closest to you need, instead of what others expect of you. It's not their holiday that you're living for. It's your holiday. It's your family's holiday. And what is most important isn't what your coworkers want. It isn't what your best friend wants necessarily. It's what you want and what your family needs from you. So focus on you. Focus on your family. This year, you might consider prioritizing and downsizing your holiday tasks, and you might find that you like it and you want to keep doing that. I know that we have had a family meeting to decide what decorations this year are absolutely necessary because, frankly, I'm very tired. We've had a very big year at WellBridge. We've opened up this brand new COVID unit, and it's required a lot of hours and a lot of extra time from all of my staff, including myself. And, you know, it feels too daunting to me to come home and put in the extra work at home. So we thought through what things we were comfortable downsizing this year. Consider drawing names of and each of the people in your family, just buying gifts for that one person. Or in some families, the adults, this is how we did it in our family for many, many years. In our family, all the adults drew names, and then each family gave to each child. So in the end, I would only have about 8 gifts to buy instead of 29 gifts, which I normally had. And I always felt like I needed to buy for everyone because I didn't want anybody's feelings hurt. I didn't want anybody to feel left out. But this way, that was cut out for me. I didn't have to worry about hurting anyone's feelings. It was the standard, and everyone was doing the same thing. And I love giving the gifts to the kids, so it was cool that we decided not to skip that part. But again, 8 gifts was really manageable for me. This same idea applies to dinners. Don't make 6 to 8 dishes. Instead, choose 3 to 4 of your most important dishes for your family. You could also try a new tradition this year and make it a potluck. If everyone pitches in, it makes your job so much easier. And speaking of pitching in, accept help. This is really hard for most of us. Accepting help from others, you feel like you're imposing, or they won't think that you can handle it yourself, or maybe you're putting them out. But really, It makes others feel great when they have the opportunity to help you. They care about you enough to have asked in the first place. And in a roundabout way, you're probably blessing them too, just as much as they're blessing you. And then the last suggestion I have for this is to make lists. It helps to be able to see exactly what needs to be done, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment when you're able to cross off those completed tasks. Let's talk a little bit about financial pressures. Those ones, they hit us all and they suck. Finances are another notorious source of stress during the holidays. Money is often already tight for seniors and caregivers. Spending also tends to increase at this time of the year on things like gifts, holiday meals, and the basic necessities. You forget about the fact that we're all paying a little bit more for our heating. We're all paying a little bit more in electricity as we heat our water for our morning showers. Oftentimes you're having to buy a few extra new warm clothes to get through this season. So be proactive. Set yourself a budget. Making a budget actually frees you up from contemplating. You're standing in the store, you're thinking, I really want to get this, but I really shouldn't. And I do want to, but I don't want to. But well, what if? Just look at your budget. Can I really afford this? It takes the emotions out of your holiday shopping and it allows you to remain objective. Either it fits the budget or it doesn't. It may seem like a bummer to live by a budget, but it's far better than realizing after the holidays that you spent far more than you really could afford. Remind your loved ones that less expensive gifts can be just as thoughtful and useful as the more expensive ones. I know homemade gifts, they can be a great thing in some families. In some families, you'd rather not get another coffee dish or weird homemade scarf or tie. But when you look back on it 20 years from now, you'll love that gift. And in addition, there's so many times nowadays where small things really are the most meaningful. If you can put your heart into what you're giving, it really doesn't matter the cost, and most people would agree with that when they see it. So save those higher dollar items for the ones super close to you, maybe your spouse, maybe your children, the ones that you have something special in mind for those ones. Make baked goods or create, I already said that, make the baked goods, the baked goods or the handcrafted gifts for your family and friends. Have your family members draw those 1 or 2 names for the gifts instead of everyone buying the presents for each other or buying presents for everyone. That really helps on the money as well. And then don't wait until the last minute. Going shopping at the last minute pushes your stress through the roof, but it also means that you're going to pay more for what you really want. Start shopping as early as you can. If you have the opportunity to sit down this weekend and put together a list of the absolute must-haves, then at least you'll be mindful of it when you see things out and about. You'll be watching for those sales and the prices won't get you as hard this year. And this is something we can encourage our elderly family members to be doing as well. And then also encouraging our elderly families as well that they have so much more to offer than their money and their gifts. You know, there's a lot of meaningful things that they can do for us over the holidays that have nothing to do with finances. And so having those real conversations with our loved ones will take the stress and the burden off of them immensely. And remember that less can be more. Sometimes as simple of a dinner as you put together, the more time you have to visit as a family, to play cards, to get out the Monopoly board. And extravagance isn't always the best. So give it some thought. Have an honest talk with yourself, have an honest talk with your family, and see what really, really matters to you, because spending the evening playing cards and laughing and joking may be the most important thing, or maybe it really is everybody gathered around in the kitchen, cooking like crazy for hours, and then chowing down together as a family. Every family is different. So really evaluate what is the most important to you and feel free to cut out everything that isn't. Social isolation is our biggest, most glaring, all over the news problem this year. It's important for us to make a concerted effort to reach out. I know for Thanksgiving this year, it was difficult for me because our family decided that it was too risky for everybody's health, especially my older parents, for us all to be flying to get together. So we all had our separate Thanksgivings. All of my 5 siblings live in different locations, and we all kind of did our own separate thing. And it was really easy come around 8 o'clock in the afternoon to be, or in the evening, to be kind of like, okay, the day's over, I'm tired. And then it was like, wait a second, there's still some people I haven't connected to. It's really, really important that you make that concerted effort to reach out, especially for our elderly population who are in their facilities. And that's the one thing they're waiting with bated breath, is for their family to reach out and give them that phone call and check in on them and just tell them about, you know, little Susie and little Bobby and how they're doing today. So make sure that you spend some time reaching out to the people that you love and enjoy. And then you might try some new techniques that have kind of become a thing lately. Planning some online events with your family, such as Netflix now has group watching parties. So you can all watch It's a Wonderful Life on television together from 5 different TV sets in 5 different states around the country and have that togetherness feeling. You can also use quite a few different apps like Google Hangouts or WhatsApp to have a family quiz night, to maybe do a caroling night, which is super fun. Or our older generation really enjoys reminiscing and telling stories from when they were young and what Christmas or Thanksgiving, or, you know, that old story about walking 10 miles uphill in 2 feet of snow. They love to share those things with us. And so having a storytelling night would be wonderful via social media apps that you can use, where just your family gets together. So give that some thought this year. Also, you could up your holiday Christmas card game this year. So many of these years we've kind of started to get away from it. Some folks will still do the Christmas family picture and send those out. And then there's a lot of people who aren't even doing that this year because they don't want to bring grandma and grandpa into a picture and potentially expose them to COVID. But writing Christmas cards is a way to connect with those that you may feel disconnected from. And lastly, I would encourage you to find a new tradition that is all about you and your family. You could go to the zoo for Christmas. You could visit a nature preserve. We have one here, and I'm spacing on the name of it, but it's a drive-through safari that my kids absolutely love. We get to feed the giraffes and there's gazelles and all these different animals and stuff. And it's just us in our car driving through something like 40 acres of wild land and enjoying time together. And that would be a really fun way to spend a Christmas afternoon. You could visit a nature preserve, drive around with hot cocoa and look at Christmas lights, plan a movie marathon with your family. Household game nights with pizza and popcorn are fun. And if you want to think about some great things to restore your own soul, a long hot bath, just you and a book or a snooze would be great, or a long video or phone conversation with that isolated loved one who you don't get to go hold hands with anymore, but you still got to make that special time in order to be able to connect with them. Another thing that isn't super fun to talk about, but we need to because it's reality and it really affects our stress and our depression at the holidays, and that is dealing with death. There are a lot of us this year, especially with the pandemic, who know someone, especially a grandmother, an uncle, someone older perhaps in our family, who has passed this year. And when you're celebrating something that is rich with traditions like Christmas or Thanksgiving, that person's presence is often missed that much more. And so it's important that you proactively go into the holidays with a plan, knowing and having the grace for yourself that I'm going to have feelings. This is going to be a moment for me. I'm going to remember grandma and wish she was here. And so I'm going to proactively think of some ways that I can bring her into my holidays and honor her memory and keep her alive in my heart and just honor those feelings that I'm having in processing the fact that she's not with us this year. So some ideas for that would be to place the person's picture in a place of prominence in the middle of your celebration area, maybe somewhere on the mantle or near the Christmas tree. You can light a memorial candle, maybe just for your evening celebration or every night of, you know, the Christmas holidays, or maybe the 12 days of Christmas. You spend a few moments thinking about your loved one. You can begin a new tradition in their honor, like the ones that we just talked about a moment ago. I love this one if you have the ability to do this with an elderly family members, to make a photo album of previous holidays together and reminisce about it. Talk about how it was 20 years ago when you had Christmas with grandma. Talk about all of the great things that you did together. And set aside some time with the family to share those memories. Pull out that photo album and talk about your loved one that you're missing this year. Make a toast to your loved one. Go to a religious service. Volunteering to help anybody else who's in need is a wonderful way to take your mind off of the things that are weighing you down. It is amazing when you give of yourself, how much you get back and how much you're able to set aside all those feelings that are weighing you down as you're serving someone else. It really is. So if you are struggling with those feelings, look for an opportunity to volunteer and find somewhere where you can go give back to the community. I promise you, it will not be time wasted. You'll be really glad you did. And lastly, if you know, not only the death of someone, but also just all of these pressures from the holidays that, you know, accumulate over time are weighing you down, I would encourage you to talk with someone, a counselor or someone who you can trust, someone you can process with without judgment. I think all of us needs this person, and some of us have that person and they're called our best friend, and that's really helpful. And some of us don't have that best friend that you can just spill your guts to and get back that true feedback that's unbiased and only, you know, that straight feedback that you need to hear, and only somebody who doesn't really care if it might hurt just a little bit, like your best friend who knows what's good for you, or an impartial counselor would be able to share with you. Like, well, have you looked at it from their perspective, perhaps? Or have you thought about your contribution to this? Only those people you can really trust will really, truly show you how you can improve. So I encourage everybody to get somebody that you can talk with. I love best friends for this, and I also love a counselor for this. Let's talk about some strategies for avoiding holiday depression. You should keep a regular schedule and take breaks. There's no reason to wait until depression happens to us in order to act on it, because there are approaches that can help prevent and minimize the symptoms. Generally, what can help is not being too hard on yourself for the difficulty you may be experiencing, and trying to do some of these key things, like keeping a regular schedule, taking those breaks. I consider that time to schedule in time for your own self-care or pamper time. You have to do something you love, or take some time to do nothing at all, but you have to be purposeful about it. So I always tell my students in my applied suicide intervention skills training classes, one of their assignments on day one of that class is go home and have some self-care time. And they'll often look at me and be like, oh, but I've got homework, or I've got to catch up on all my emails because I was in this class all day, or this, that, or the other. And I'll say to them, well, are you going to take a shower when you get home tonight? And most of them are like, well, yeah. Well, even something that you do every single day that isn't normally considered me time, is not normally considered self-care perhaps, can be turned into that if you take a few extra steps. Put a couple of drops of I can't think of what they're called right now, the scented oils that you would use, essential oils, there we go. Grab that super luxurious towel, light a candle, turn on some soft music, dim the lights. You can purposefully turn the ordinary into something special. And we all have that extra 5 minutes it would take to spice up that shower or that bath time. So there's really no excuse not to mindfully do things that refreshes and renews your own spirit and your own heart. You should set realistic expectations for what the holidays will look like for you, and realistic expectations for yourself regarding how you plan to participate. If you don't have it in you to go to 7 different Christmas pageants at 7 different schools for all of the cousins and nephews and nieces and best friends' children and everybody else, set yourself some boundaries and set realistic expectations. You know that your time is limited, and so make choices that are realistic for you so that you don't feel guilty when you can't make it to all of those different events. Make sure you get regular exercise. It's typical for people to stop doing the healthy things that they usually do because of holiday activities and inclement weather. Make exercise a top priority, even if it's only 15 or 20 minutes a day. This will make a huge difference in your mood and your mentality. And I would say, as much as it is fun and we all kind of do it around the holidays, it's best not to overeat at every meal. This weighs you down. You feel like a log when you're done and you just want to go lay down and sleep it off. So save those indulgences for the meals where it really matters to you. You know, perhaps the Christmas Eve meal or that New Year's meal. And then be careful about the amount of alcohol you drink. Remember that alcohol is a depressant and it can affect you, especially if you're very, very prone to being depressed or melancholy or sad. Try not to overdo the alcohol. Keep it at a minimum. Depression can occur at any time of the year, but the stress and anxiety during the months of November and December may cause even those who are usually content to experience loneliness and a lack of fulfillment that leads to depression, anxiety, and a decreased quality of life. If these symptoms persist after the holidays, or you've already had them and they worsen due to the holidays, please make sure you go see your doctor, a psychiatrist, or a counselor to get some extra help. Even your PCP can be extra help, although I would warn against that. It's not their forte. So do try and see if you can find a mental health professional if this is something that's going on for you. Consider medication if your doctor will agree to it and if that is appropriate for your situation. Do know that it is not a sign of weakness, and also go into it expecting that it doesn't fix everything. It will not fix you, but it can take the edge off, making it more manageable for you, something that you're able to conquer a little easier. And if your feelings worsen and thoughts of suicide creep in, please visit your nearest hospital, get an evaluation at an ER, or you can go to a hospital such as WellBridge. We're open 24/7, or you can call the suicide helpline, which is, I'll have that number throughout the presentation. I think I may have it next. No. Oh, hey, I missed this one. Sorry, guys. The number is at the bottom there, though. It's 1-800-273-HELP. And I carry this on a card in my wallet just in case, because I don't trust myself to remember. But, you know, I've ran into people in some of the strangest places, and you get to talking and you just think, you know, this person might need this phone number and it can't hurt to offer it to them. So I do like to keep that phone number with me. Okay, so let's switch gears for a moment and we'll take this just a little bit deeper and now discuss suicide and the holidays. First of all, I want to tell you that the good news is that the holidays is not typically a time of increased suicide. Now, that's been the data we've had for many years. 2020, I think, maybe a little different. We'll find out. But the good news is that Christmas and New Year's and all that do not necessarily spur on feelings of hopelessness that would mount to suicide. Our most intense months for suicide are in the spring and the fall. Again, with this pandemic, it'll be hard to say because the isolation that we've all experienced this year, the losses we've experienced, the financial hardship that many have experienced is very, very different from years past, and it's been pretty significant. So I just would encourage everybody to be hyper vigilant this year because we don't know what we're getting into. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. It was responsible for more than 48,000 deaths in 2018. I could not find the 2019 number for sure. It resulted in about 1 death every 11 minutes. Internationally, that rate climbs to 800 deaths and 1 death every 40 seconds. Statistically, 25 times more people consider suicide than actually die from it. Think about that for a second. You know, a good number of us have had that moment where it's flipped through our head, and some folks, especially if they're super, super down, will stay there for a few minutes, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days or weeks or months, and think about it. You know, well, what if? Maybe I should. Maybe my children would be better without me. Maybe this pain would go away. And yet they never do anything about it. So the amount of suicidal thoughts are truly significantly enormous over the amount of those who actually do complete suicide, 25 times more. So in 2019, 12 million American adults seriously contemplated suicide. 3.5 million made a plan for suicide. 1.4 million people attempted to end their life. And these are only the reported cases. It's believed that the number of unreported cases, if known, would increase each of these numbers by about 9%. I mean, sorry, not 9%, 9 times. Many accidental overdoses were classified as accidental, but they were actually intentional. Sometimes car accidents that look like they were an accident were not an accident at all. Many people never report their suicidal thoughts, or that they were making a plan, or that they made an attempt because they're embarrassed and do not want to be stigmatized, or because or to cause their families heartache or worries. So instead they suffer alone and quietly. So I guess my take-home message on this is, this problem is far bigger than most of us realize. And if you imagine that it is all around you and you just stay open and alert for it, you may be able to make a positive difference in the life of someone who is considering this. It's a mistake to think that the elderly people don't consider or attempt suicide. It really blew me away when I first started learning about this early in my career. I thought, you know, they're more mature when they're 75 years old. They wouldn't think that way. They would know that there's a way out of these problems, but it's not true. Those over 75 years of age make up the largest group of people who do manage to complete suicide. At that age, many of them feel that there's no hope left. They feel like they're a burden. They feel like nobody would miss them. Or they are in pain or discomfort every single day. Or they're lonely and they just don't want to live that way anymore. And so you will see that that is the largest number. So what's the impact? Oops, wait, I'm going to go back from it. In addition to the number of people who are injured or who die, suicide also affects the health of others and the community. When people die by suicide, their family and friends may experience shock, anger, guilt, and depression. The economic toll of suicide on society is immense as well. Suicides and suicide attempts cost the nation almost $70 billion per year in lifetime medical and work loss costs alone. People who attempt suicide and survive may experience serious injuries such as broken bones or brain injury. These injuries can have long-term effects on their health. People who survive suicide attempts, may also experience depression and other mental health problems. Many other people are impacted by knowing someone who dies or by personally experiencing suicidal thoughts. Additionally, being a survivor or someone with lived experience increases one's risk for future suicide. So now let's talk about the take-home message. You've got to pay attention to your loved ones. They may be dropping silent or not so silent signals. And we have to be comfortable asking the question if you think that there's any chance at all that they may be contemplating suicide. Potential warning signs include often talking or writing about death, dying, or suicide. If you have a teenager that draws some very, very dark pictures, you might do a little prying to kind of find out where their head is at. Making comments about being hopeless, helpless, or worthless. I'll never get it right. It doesn't really matter anyways. Nobody really cares. Comments like that are oftentimes the tip of an iceberg. Expressions of having no reason for living, no sense of purpose in life, like saying things like, it would be better if I wasn't here, or I want out, or I just don't want to do this anymore, or I can't take it anymore. Those are all comments worth exploring. And sometimes they're innocent and sometimes they're not. Someone who's contemplating suicide is often going to begin to drink more alcohol, or if they have the prescriptions for opiates or are a drug abuser, you may see an increase in their alcohol or drug use. You will oftentimes see them pulling away from their friends, from their family, and their community. One of the number one risks is isolation again. The more isolated you are, the easier it is to lie to yourself that nobody needs you, nobody will miss you, nobody cares, I'm just a burden, why am I here? So isolation is really an enemy to potential suicidal behavior. You might see reckless behavior or more risky activities, seemingly without thinking. Things like suddenly they become very promiscuous and start sleeping around, and that's never been who they are in their life. Taking drugs like they never have before, speeding, doing things that just don't seem like their normal risk-taking behavior. Gambling. You will see folks who are feeling suicidal gamble away all of their money in an attempt to either just be done with it, or maybe they can cash in real big and delay that death, or cash in real big and leave something for their family. Oftentimes they'll start giving away their belongings. This especially happens with the elderly population, where they start assigning all of those memorabilia that they have, and maybe they've already written their will ages and ages ago, but suddenly it becomes the forefront of their thought. I just want to make sure that you have this, whatever it is, this trinket. Dramatic mood changes, especially, and this is the weird one, from depressed to happy. If someone who has been melancholy and irritable and just kind of an Eeyore suddenly becomes that happy, shining, sunshiny person, ask some questions. It's not normal for that to happen quickly and suddenly, unless there's a mental health condition. But it happens with our suicidal folks because they've made peace. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. The pain is about to end. I'm going to be okay. It's going to go away. I'm going to feel so much better in a few days when I take care of this. So be very, very observant of sudden mood changes, but especially if it becomes happier than normal. And then if they start talking about feeling trapped or being a burden to others, this is just a high warning sign. The number one mistake that people and loved ones specifically make is that they don't ask. Your uncomfortability will last about 8 seconds, but the reward could be a lifetime. You need to ask, what do you mean by? When they say things like, I'm just no good to anybody anymore. What do you mean by that? Try and get them to expose more of it. You have to be blatant with them. You cannot ask them, are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Because if someone is seeing that light at the end of the tunnel where I'm no longer going to be in pain, I'm no longer going to be miserable, that doesn't feel like I'm about to hurt myself. That feels like I'm about to give myself mercy. I'm about to free myself. This is going to be wonderful. So don't ask them if they're thinking about hurting themselves. And then you need to be very careful too that you don't say it's something like this. You're not thinking about killing yourself, are you? Because you've just made it very clear that the right answer is to say no, the safe answer. But if I were to say yes, yeah, that doesn't sound very safe to say that to this person who's making it sound like that would be kind of dumb, right? So do ask them, are you considering ending your life? Have you had thoughts of killing yourself? It's a hard question, and I always make my classes practice it because like I get choked up if I don't say it for a very, very long time. It kind of creates a lump in the back of your throat that you're about to ask this person a very personal and very bold, strong question. And you know that the answer might be yes. And what do you do if they say yes? If they do say yes, don't leave them alone until you've secured professional help and you've handed them off to that helper. You stay with them. If you can't stay with them for some crazy reason, you get somebody else to stay with them, but you don't leave them alone. You make sure that they understand that they are special and valuable, and you do not want them to do this. So you're going to stay tight. You're going to hang around with them and get them to where they need to be. Now, where do they need to be? They really need to go to an emergency room. If it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, the local mental health authorities are open. And this is especially good for the uninsured. But again, that's really only business hours. A lot of hospitals around here, a lot of them will have a free local assessment at their psychiatric unit. I know that at WellBridge in both Plano and Fort Worth, we have 24/7 walk-in hours. You can come and see us at any time of day or night, and we will sit down with you, find out what's going on, and make a recommendation for the level of care you need. If it's very, very serious, we may say that you need to be in the hospital at this time. And sometimes people feel safer to just pick up a phone and call. And I would say for you as a potential caregiver, as you're sitting there with this person, that might be the first thing you try is, well, would you mind if we called somebody and talk to them about how you're feeling? Somebody who doesn't know you, who, you know, it doesn't matter what you say to them, and go ahead and call the suicide helpline, that 1-800-273-TALK number. And that person's going to talk with them long enough to have a solid understanding of whether they need to go to the hospital immediately. And you can help them to facilitate that. If you absolutely find yourself away from them, say you find out this information over the phone, or somebody types something in on Facebook. It's been nice knowing y'all. You've been my best friends. I'm so grateful to you. You know, it's going to be so much better when I'm not here. Something that just clues you in. Call the police and ask them to do a welfare check. There is nothing that's going to get anybody into any trouble, and the police don't mind if you call them and ask for a welfare check. The police will go out to the place where this person is, and they will ask them how they're doing and do an assessment on site. Now, the thing is, they're not always the most skilled at understanding suicidality, and they're not always the most skilled at knowing when the suicidal person says, it was just a joke. I'm okay. I'm not planning to hurt myself. And they will not take away that person's rights by imposing anything on them. So I would encourage you to try your darndest to get them to a hospital. But those are some of the options that you have. And lastly, I just want to encourage you that if you have been affected by suicide, whether that's a loved one, a friend, heck, when Robin Williams passed, a lot of the nation was in mourning, and it just made everybody really consider, if that could happen to somebody like him, who else could it happen to? And there was a lot of people who needed somebody to talk to and process through those feelings. And that's okay. It really is. It's a big deal to think about somebody potentially taking their life. So if you have been affected by suicide, I suggest you reach out to a counselor. But NAMI is another great organization, because you deserve someone to walk by your side and to help you sort it all out and give you a unjudging, unbiased ear. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. And I will also, if you do get a copy of this PowerPoint, it has all of these links for different resources at the end, should you want to check any of them out. All right. That is all.
All right, if anyone has questions, if you would please type them into the Q&A so that we can address your questions with Cassandra. Thank you, Cassandra, for sharing all of that information.
Sure.
The question that we have is, can you comment on the suicide rate during COVID times? I know that you don't necessarily have the national numbers, but kind of what you all are seeing, and are you seeing an increase because of COVID, or are you seeing things being similar to what they were in 2019?
That's a great question. So I don't have hard and fast numbers. I have more anecdotal evidence, and a couple of the different speakers that I like to follow. I'm trying to think of his exact name. Dr. Zubin Damari, I believe is his name, is one of my favorites that I watch. And there has been an increase. And a lot of that has just been a sense of feeling like there's no hope. I've lost my job. You see all these bars that have shut down. You see all of these other attractions perhaps that have shut down. Wedding venues aren't getting the kind of income they're used to. Restaurants are at half capacity, all that kind of stuff. And so people's livelihoods have been affected, and they don't have the same level of support system that they had once before, when they were able to go hang out with anybody at any given time, go to the bar, go to the restaurant, take their friends, have that venting session. So there has been an increase. The other big significant issue is that alcohol and drugs greatly affect suicidality, because alcohol and drugs alter your mental state of mind. And if you're already feeling icky and you throw some alcohol on top of that, your opportunity for suicidality increases. And we have seen significantly higher rates of folks go into those alcohol stores and buying huge quantities of alcohol to chase the blues away at home. And unfortunately, that's never a good combination. So there has been an increase. We just don't have a quantification quite yet. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much. We have a few more questions. The next one is, there was a significant difference in the percentage rates between male and females of the over 75 suicides. How do you understand this?
Well, again, anecdotally, this is speculation because I don't have any scientific information behind this, but working with elderly clients, I can tell you that a lot of those maternal figures seem to have a little bit better of a support system. They tend to have their children and their grandchildren that still stick a little bit closer to them. And the men tend to be a little bit more isolated. Men are also a little bit more concrete, and to take your own life is a very concrete decision to make. And this sounds terrible, but women can be a little wishy-washy. And even though we tend to be the more emotional beings, it's very hard to commit to a concrete act, such as something that you cannot turn back from, that's final. Women do tend to prefer not to do finality quite as much. So if I had to speculate, and that is all this is, that would be my speculation.
Great, thank you. Next question, do you know if social workers or mental health professionals work with the police on welfare checks?
Absolutely. This is something that I had a great time being a part of in the Collin County area. They worked with the local mental health authority, and we actually placed in a mobile assessor on the police department team to go out to these calls. Now, every police department does not have this, but I can tell you one of the other projects I worked on, which was fantastic, is a training program with all of the police departments from all over Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then some, like pretty much all of northern Texas, where we brought them in for a week-long training, and the mental health professionals came and helped to train them. The most fun for me was on one of those days of training, we set up in the entire upper floor of a church 25 different rooms where they would come upon 25 different mental health scenes. And we brought in all of our staff to do scenes where they would act out suicidal behaviors or manic behaviors or whatever it was, for the police officers to practice dealing with those folks in the community. And when they were done attempting to diffuse or handle the situation, we would then sit with them and spend a few minutes debriefing them and telling them what they could do better, as well as what their resources were, because a lot of them didn't know, okay, I have this person doing this, what can I do for them, or where can I take them besides arrest them, which is never really the answer. So yes, there's a lot of that going on, and it's been really a fantastic program that just continues to grow here in northern Texas.
Awesome, thank you. Next question, can you address the passive suicidal ideation with no plan, but fleeting idea occasionally, and best approach if they deny any further ideas or plans?
I'm hoping what you're asking is, what would I as a person do for someone that I know is having some passive suicidal ideation but don't have a current plan, and that idea comes back and forth on occasion? What would I do for this person? This person needs to be in treatment. Regardless of the fact that they say, no, I really don't have any intention to act upon it. They're not feeling awesome. They are hurting. Something is weighing them down in such a way that they need some extra support. And that support can be anything from therapy to medication support to group support to learning some new coping skills that will help kind of pull them out of that muck in the mire when their brain goes that direction, and when they start having those overwhelming feelings of, maybe it would be better if I didn't wake up tomorrow. And I think that's one of the most common ones is, I just don't want to wake up tomorrow. I haven't really thought through what my plan would be because I really don't want to hurt myself. I just really don't want to wake up. I don't want to be here. That person needs help to be able to process those emotions, process those feelings, and get some more tools in their tool bag that will help keep them away from developing those suicidal thoughts into a plan down the line.
Thank you for that. Next question. Can you comment on individuals who have been shunned or isolated by family for various issues and feel there is no one who cares and no opportunity to socialize?
Well, that breaks my heart. Unfortunately, mental health issues, especially suicidality, is still very stigmatized throughout the world, but still very much so. As progressive as we are in the United States, people don't understand it. And I would say, especially families, you get that they're just looking for attention. They're just being manipulative. They don't really mean it. I know them better than that. But here's the thing. It really only takes one time of being sad enough to think you're just going to try something, and it goes too far and you can't come back from it. I know of several of those deaths where I'm pretty positive the person really didn't even intend to. And so I think it's important that when a family is like that, that the community and anybody possible in their sphere of reference wraps around them and offers education. I highly, highly recommend anybody whose family member has a new mental health diagnosis or a mental health diagnosis that they don't understand gets involved with NAMI, because NAMI will take the time to educate families, cousins, sisters, brothers, anybody who has someone they care about with a mental health issue, understand what's really going on and how it's not their fault. It's not that they're trying to manipulate people. It's not that they, you know, I mean, no matter what the mental health situation is, those families just need education. They really do. Because, and the thing I would encourage, if this is someone you know, is to just let them know, yeah, but what if? Because you can't take it back. And so you may feel very, very confident that this is a manipulative game for this young teenager who just never gets their way and is trying to make mom and dad feel sorry for them. But it only takes one time. You need to find out what's really going on at the heart of it and embrace that person if you don't want to look back one day with regret that you didn't see it and that you didn't do anything about it. So I would encourage you, as it sounds like you're a support person for whomever this is, to look for those supports that you can draw into that family's life and, you know, perhaps help them to just be willing to learn little bits and pieces here and there. So I hope that answered your question. It feels a little too vague for me, but.
No worries, no worries. Thank you so much, Cassandra. We really appreciate you being here and sharing all that great information with us. I want to again thank Oxford Brand Senior Living, Kindred Behavioral Health, WellBridge Healthcare, and Seniors Blue Book for helping to put on today's program for us. Make sure that you know that you can order Seniors Blue Books and discharge planners to help share resources with your patients and clients. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.